Rawls is easy to read wrong at first. When he first appears in The Wire, he looks like the typical angry police boss. Loud, cruel, political, obsessed with discipline, always ready to crush whoever makes his office harder to manage. He does not seem interested in justice in the emotional sense. He does not move through the department like a man chasing truth. He moves like a man trying to keep a machine from embarrassing him. And that is the point. Rawls understands the game because he understands what the Baltimore Police Department actually rewards, not what it claims to reward. Not what the speeches say, not what the academy version of policing pretends the job is about. He understands the real structure underneath it. The chain of command matters, the numbers matter, the press matters, the mayor matters, the clearance rate matters, the appearance of control matters. And if a detective is brilliant but uncontrollable, Rawls sees that detective as both useful and dangerous. That is why his relationship with McNulty is so important. McNulty is the kind of police Rawls can recognize immediately. He knows McNulty is talented. He knows McNulty can read a case, find angles other people miss, and push an investigation further than most detectives would. Rawls is not stupid. He never mistakes McNulty for dead weight. The problem is that McNulty does not just work cases. He creates problems above his rank. He talks to judges. He pulls attention from places where the department does not want attention. He makes quiet failures public. He turns ignored murders into political headaches. To McNulty, that feels like real police work. To Rawls, it feels like sabotage. Not because Rawls has no idea what murder means. Not because he is incapable of understanding that bodies matter, but because he sees the department as a hierarchy before he sees it as a moral project. In Rawls's world, a case is not just a case. A case is a burden that lands somewhere. It lands on a unit, a commander, a district, a report, a clearance rate, a meeting, a headline. Every body has an administrative cost. Every open file becomes a number somebody has to defend. Every detective who goes outside the chain of command creates a problem that cannot be controlled from the top. That is how Rawls thinks. He is not asking, first, what happened. He is asking where the damage goes. This is what makes him so different from the detectives below him. Bunk, Lester, and McNulty still believe in different ways that the case has a kind of gravity. Once the bodies are there, once the pattern is visible, once the Wire starts showing how the organization works, they want to follow it. They can be cynical, selfish, drunk, tired, and flawed, but they still have moments where the work itself pulls them forward. Rawls does not let the work pull him anywhere, unless the institution needs him to move. That does not mean he is lazy. In fact, Rawls is often more alert than the people around him. He sees consequences faster. He sees who is exposed. He sees when a case is about to become a career problem. He understands how blame travels upward, and he understands how to push it sideways before it reaches him. The murders in the Port case show this clearly. When the dead women are found in the container, the first question is not treated like a clean moral question. It becomes a jurisdiction problem, a statistical problem, a political problem. Who owns the bodies? Which department has to carry them? Which office gets stuck with the clearance nightmare? Rawls understands that a pile of dead women is not only a tragedy. In the language of the department, it is also a disaster that can wreck numbers overnight. That is a cold way to see it, but The Wire keeps showing that institutions often turn human suffering into categories before they turn it into action. Rawls is not the only person doing that. He is just one of the few characters honest enough in his behavior to show that he knows the rules. He does not pretend the system is clean. He does not pretend rank is about nobility. He does not pretend that the department runs on truth. Rawls's intelligence is bureaucratic. He knows how the room works. He knows when to attack, when to flatter, when to step back, and when to let someone else take the fall. He knows that power in the police department is not always about solving the hardest case. It is about surviving the meeting after the case becomes inconvenient. This is why Rawls can look both ridiculous and terrifying in command scenes. He can seem petty, obsessed with stats, furious over small procedural violations, and yet beneath that anger there is a very clear logic. He is defending order, not moral order, institutional order. For Rawls, the chain of command is not just a rule. It is the thing that keeps the whole department from turning into chaos. A detective who bypasses his bosses does not simply insult a superior. He threatens the structure that allows people like Rawls to control information. Once information starts moving in uncontrolled ways, politicians get involved, judges get involved, newspapers get involved, and suddenly the police department is reacting instead of directing. Rawls hates that. He wants information contained until it can be used properly. He wants problems to move through the right channels because the right channels give command staff time to shape the outcome. McNulty's greatest sin is not that he cares about the murders. It is that he forces the department to care before the department is ready to care. That is why Rawls punishes him so personally. But the show also gives Rawls a scene that stops him from being a simple villain. After Kima is shot, McNulty is drowning in guilt. For once, the usual department politics fall away. The room is not about stats or rank. It is about a detective lying wounded, and another detective realizing that his choices may have helped put her there. Rawls sees McNulty in that moment and does something unexpected. He does not use the moment to crush him. He does not turn it into a lecture about discipline. He gives him a hard, direct kind of mercy. He tells him in his own way that guilt is not the same thing as responsibility. That moment matters because it shows Rawls understands more than he usually reveals. He understands police work. He understands the weight of a bad night. He understands that detectives can destroy themselves by replaying every choice that led to blood on the floor. And because he understands it, he knows exactly what McNulty needs to hear in that moment. This is the strange thing about Rawls. He is not empty. He is not unaware. He is not one of those bosses who has lost all contact with the job below him. He knows the job. He knows the people. He knows what guilt looks like. He knows how a police can break. But most of the time, he chooses the institution anyway. That is where his psychology becomes interesting. Rawls seems to believe that the department cannot be run by feeling. Feeling creates exceptions. Exceptions create disorder. Disorder creates exposure. So even when he understands the human side of the job, he does not build his leadership around it. He keeps that understanding locked away and uses it only when the moment is private enough not to weaken him. Public Rawls is control. Private Rawls, in rare flashes, is much more perceptive. The brief scene of him in the gay bar adds another layer to this. The show does not explain it, and that is what makes it powerful. It appears, then it disappears. Nobody turns it into a speech. Nobody gives Rawls a confession scene. It simply shows that there is a private life sitting far away from the brutal command persona he performs at work. That scene should not be stretched into some easy explanation for everything he does. Rawls is not cruel because of that one hidden part of himself. The show is more disciplined than that. What the scene does suggest is that Rawls understands compartmentalization deeply. He knows how to separate public identity from private reality. He knows how to survive inside an institution where perception can become a weapon. He knows what can be shown, what must be hidden, and what must never enter the official room. That makes his command style feel even more deliberate. Rawls lives in a world of surfaces: the reported number, the official position, the public face, the visible chain of command. He understands that the version of reality written down and presented upward often matters more than the fuller truth underneath it. He is not shocked by that. He is built for it. This is why he survives. Other characters in The Wire try to change the game, expose the game, or ignore the game. Rawls plays it. He may complain, rage, and humiliate people, but he rarely loses sight of the board. He knows who has political cover. He knows when Burrell is useful. He knows when a mayor's office wants crime down more than it wants crime understood. He knows that reform language can be absorbed by the same old system if the numbers still have to look right by Friday. When Bunny Colvin creates Hamsterdam, Rawls's reaction is not the reaction of someone amazed that crime can be managed differently. It is the reaction of someone who knows exactly how dangerous an unauthorized truth can be. Colvin's experiment is not just illegal or strange. It reveals too much. It shows that the numbers can change if the rules are bent. It shows that the department's public version of policing is not the only possible version. It creates results, but it also creates exposure. To reform-minded people, that kind of exposure can look like a chance to talk honestly. To Rawls, it is a bomb. He understands that institutions do not fear failure as much as they fear uncontrolled honesty. A failed policy can be explained. A bad year can be blamed on resources, demographics, drugs, courts, schools, anything. But an unauthorized success is more dangerous because it proves someone broke the rules and got a result the official system could not get. Rawls knows that the institution cannot reward that without admitting too much, so Colvin has to be isolated. That is one of the coldest truths in The Wire. The people who understand the system well enough to maneuver inside it are usually the same people least likely to change it. Rawls can see the machinery clearly, but his instinct is not to dismantle it. His instinct is to protect his place inside it. This is also why Rawls is not exactly like Burrell. Burrell is political in a broader, smoother way. He is built around survival through alliances, symbolism, and the needs of City Hall. Rawls is more operational. He is closer to the working violence of the department. He understands how the bosses think, but he also understands how detectives behave, how commanders hide bad numbers, how pressure moves down the ladder, and how blame gets cleaned before it rises. Burrell survives by being useful to politicians. Rawls survives by being useful to the machine itself. He is the man who can walk into a room and make everyone understand that the fantasy is over. He can tear apart a commander's excuses. He can turn statistics into weapons. He can make subordinates feel the cost of embarrassing the department. That does not make him morally admirable, but it does make him effective inside that world. Rawls' way of thinking appears to be built around one basic belief. The game is not about being right. It is about staying in position long enough to decide what right will officially mean. That is why he is so hostile to people who act from principle without permission. A principled detective can be useful for a while, but eventually that detective becomes unpredictable. A principled commander can produce results, but if those results embarrass the official story, the commander becomes a liability. A good case can become a bad case if it lands at the wrong time. A solved murder can still be a career problem if it exposes something the department wanted buried. Rawls understands all of this without needing anyone to explain it. He is one of the clearest examples in the show of institutional intelligence without moral imagination. He can read the system perfectly. He can anticipate danger. He can manage pressure. He can survive almost any shift in leadership because he knows that every administration, no matter what it promises, eventually needs someone who can keep the department moving and absorb the ugliness of command. And by the end, that is exactly what happens. Rawls does not get punished the way more exposed characters do. He does not burn out like McNulty. He does not get crushed like Colvin. He does not carry the same visible tragedy as the street characters. He keeps moving upward because the institution recognizes its own. The system has room for a Rawls because Rawls does not threaten its basic logic. He may curse it, he may rage inside it, he may know exactly how rotten it can be, but he does not truly betray it. That is the difference between understanding the game and escaping it. Rawls understands the game better than almost anyone in the department, but his understanding is not liberating. It only makes him better at playing. He sees the lies clearly enough to use them. He sees the numbers clearly enough to manipulate them. He sees the people clearly enough to control them. He sees the politics clearly enough to survive them. What he does not seem to believe in is the possibility that any of it can be made honest, so he does not waste time trying. That is what makes him such a strong wire character. He is not the deepest man in the show emotionally, but he is one of the most accurate. He represents a kind of person every institution produces, someone smart enough to know the system is compromised, but too invested in the system to challenge it. Someone who can recognize good police work, but only values it when it stays obedient. Someone who can show mercy in a hospital hallway, then return to crushing people the next morning because the machine requires it. Rawls understood the game because he never confused the job with the story people told about the job. The story was justice. The job was control. And Rawls, more than almost anyone, knew which one got promoted.